What's up everyone, I'm Logan with 89 Auto Works, and today we are working on the Rocketwagon again. So a little backstory on this car, for those of you that haven't watched all the videos. This car is a 2002 WRX. We've done a ton of work on it, and it's basically a fully built car. Everything's been touched on it. Suspension, drivetrain, it has a 6-speed swap, it has a hybrid EJ257 short block. 280 BC cams in it, FP black. It's a pretty rowdy build. Makes just over 400 at the wheels on pump gas right now, and we've kind of been in a position where we've been waiting for our tuning facility to be up and running so that we can get these things kind of pushed through and get real actual dyno tuning done on these cars, which is what we will be doing from basically this point forward on all of our builds. We're going to be getting dyno tuned this weekend, and we are going to do some upgrades to this thing before it actually hits the dyno. With that being said, the big ones that we are going to be doing, something that's never got touched on this car, that's always been kind of, I guess, a regret in my mind. We never did any trans mounts, engine mounts, or pitch stop mounts. So this thing's making 400 at the wheels on a stock plastic pitch stop mount. And as you can imagine, with 280 cams, this thing gets a little bit rowdy under the hood.
I'm finna jump for this shit. All top when I speak, all cap with the speech till they caught up in the rapture. I'm so out of line with the phrase game. Let's take a break, been a long day. Hit your line, what you fall through with the light sticks. Maybe help me spark the ideas. We got nowhere else to go, it's only up from there. I've been on my own, just running through the field. Say vivid for the ears, I know that's how they like it. Yeah, I fantasize. Tell me that it's real when it's all said and done. I said it how I fit it.
The big jump up here is the car was tuned on ID1050X injectors. Like I said, making right at 400 at the wheels, and it's not a bad figure. It's not bad, but it's not where it should be with a built motor and giant massive race car cams and a giant massive race car turbo and the top of the line on like everything that you can put on this thing. So we are going to bump our setup up just a little bit here, and we are going with ID 1700s. And we are actually going to be setting this car up with a full flex fuel tune, so it'll actually be set up on E85 and actually have the computer compensate for the ethanol content that is going to be true to the actual true percentage of ethanol content that is in the tank. Whether that be 10%, whether that be true E85, the car will be able to automatically compensate and tune for that and run great. So a big part of that obviously is the injectors. And then we have the Innovate Motorsports, their MTXD ethanol content sensor and ethanol fuel temperature sensor kit. And a big part of that also is going to be, we obviously do not have everything that's on the car right now is a braided nylon line for the Dash 6 lines that are under the hood of this car. So we are going to be going ahead and upgrading all of that stuff to Dash 6 PTFE E85 fuel safe lines. So with that extremely expensive set of injectors, we went ahead and bought a Turbo Smart. I can't remember if that's a 10 or a 6 micron, but it was the best fuel filter that I could buy that was available, that was E85 safe, that was inside of the range for filtering for these injectors. And the last one, that's something that my tuner has been recommending on all my big builds, is the Radium fuel pulsation dampener, and this is a universal inline one that we will end up going and putting in line so that the car can fully operate under all the conditions it needs to. And when you're having big fuel pressure coming in, you don't get this big surge when you lift off the pedal, that the injectors take it all and end up forcing more fuel through the injectors. So we will end up going in and putting that fuel pulsation dampener in line, and then the last thing we are going to be doing on this car is a full once-over dyno prep inspection. Something that we have never actually done before. This is a new, I guess, setup that we're going to be doing, and a new, procedure that will be done on every car that's going to go across the dyno. So for those of you that have never seen it, this is the Rocketwagon's engine. Obviously you can see that there is a ton of stuff crammed under the hood of this car, which is part of the reason why It's a hard car to deal with, just purely because with the intercooler piping wrapping all the way around the motor and being aluminum, if it touches quite literally anything, it makes a tone that the knock sensor wants to pick up, and that's a big part of what we need to fix today, is getting it so everything is actually happy here. So we are going to go ahead and take everything apart right now, get the intercooler piping out of our way, and just kind of start working on getting the fuel system ready to go and figuring all of that stuff out. I got most of the junk out of the way, and we are going to look at kind of what we have going on here. Obviously we have our FPR over here, and we have all of our lines routed, so they're coming over here. Obviously you have to be able to have that there. Interesting. Super interesting. All right, guys, so it's the next day. Ran out of time yesterday, and I unfortunately just broke my frickin' tripod, so I am going to have to be getting a little creative with this shit today. So for now, I am working on, I have all the fuel systems stripped off of this car, less the injectors and the fuel rails. Just kind of working on doing the line routing, and I'm going to insert a clip right here. Just kind of something I found interesting here. My nylock bolts somehow came loose. So that's loose, and if you take and for whatever reason this gauge is just super loud and has a ton of play here. So kind of wondering if that's been causing our knock problems this whole time. Interesting. So as you guys can see there, we clearly have a little bit of a vibration going on, and obviously with the 280 cams in this motor, it's going to vibrate. So we are actually going to be working on pulling the fuel pressure regulator and that rattly gauge off of the motor itself. Turns out that the screws that were in the back of that gauge that hold the whole face and everything together had rattled themselves like just, I mean, a quarter turn loose, but just loose enough to make it so you had a bunch of play in there. So we're going to work on just completely going ahead and rerouting the fuel pressure regulator and the fuel pulsation dampener and all that stuff we're going to be putting on away from the actual engine itself, so that all we are doing is running lines directly onto the engine. So I'm kind of thinking I'm going to end up making a bracket that will go here, or basically somewhere along those lines. So it is mounted up here and it's looking good. We're gonna have our returns coming in here and our feed will come in here. It's just gonna be everything a little bit more centrally located. I did already get the injectors swapped out and got the feed lines on, and then we will just have to continue from our Y down here. You guys can just barely see. From there, we'll have to continue our feed line over to the fuel pulsation dampener, which is awesome because that means everything will be going right out the back and over, which is good. All right, guys, so we went ahead and we got the engine mounts in the car. That was a fight, which is why I did not record it, because I was not having fun. But you guys can see those Perrin engine mounts. Moral of the story, decide that you want engine mounts when you build your car, because after that, it is not that fun to get them in there. All right, so we got some stuff done at this point. We have this list here, and we better go down it and find a freaking Sharpie to do some listing. Okay, so list here. This was the list that I kind of just had made for this car from the beginning. Broke it down into different categories of things that needed to get done. So for the fuel system, we needed to install the injectors. That is done. Fuel lines, those are halfway done. The fuel filter is currently done. The fuel damper is done. Need to finish the fuel lines. I have not done the ethanol content sensor. As far as the mounts go, we did the engine mounts. That was not fun. Saved you guys some broken ears from listening to me install that. The trans mount was done. And then as far as the ignition goes, the new spark plugs will be here tomorrow. We are going with 2 steps colder. So those are BKR 8EIX plugs. And those are 2 steps colder over factory. 1 second, I'll show you guys why. Alright, so I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but if you look at the plug itself, here's a plug that came out of the Rocketwagon. You can see that the heat is actually making it 3 full threads down. Ideal, you're 1 to 2 threads, and then also the electrode, you can probably not see this, but the electrode itself actually has heat. The timing mark is all the way down here, which I thought was from this car pulling timing from the NOx sensor going crazy, but apparently that is actually from heat. The heat will pull it down the electrode also. We need to, oh my goodness. Oh, transmission fluid is on here. So we drain the fluid and everything out of the transmission, and we are going to be using a special setup here. This is kind of what I've been reading online. You should be using for a 6-speed for the best results is redline. This stuff right here is 7590 gear oil. It is stuff that's specific to the limited slip that is in the front diff on this 6-speed. So we went with this, and then we went with 3 of these quarts of the lightweight shock-proof gear oil. Basically, we're going to start with this. We're going to go with 2 of these, and then we're going to just be watching the dipstick. It should be right around 4. I think it's like 3.8. So we are going to do that. I'm going to start with the 7590 so we make sure we get the full mamma jamma of that in there and lead to these. It's blue. So basically how this works is this sensor would have came with 4 wires coming out of it, 2 blacks, a white, and a blue. So the 2 blacks are your heater wires. They're actual 12-volt switch power coming into the O2 sensor to warm it up for a faster reading. Your blue wire that comes out of here would go, and that would be your signal wire, and your white wire is your ground. So this setup we're making right here is actually for the MTXD. This is a ethanol content and fuel temperature sensor, and this is going to be going in the Rocketwagon so we can run flex fuel. And basically what this does for us is this takes and has a ethanol content sensor. So we will put this in line in the fuel system, mount it up in the engine bay, and have a harness that goes from here into the sensor. It is your four wires that come into here. It's a 4-pin connector, but it's actually only got 3 wires going into it. And then so that will feed into here, and then you have your black, which is your ground, red that's hot, and your yellow, which is your ethanol content, and your white, which is for your, if you wanted it to dim and stuff like that when you turn the headlights on. And if you don't, you run this wire directly into the, you run the white wire directly into the ground. So basically where we're at here, so your white wire will go with your black wire, and those will be grounded to a legit good ground. So how this works is this pulls in ethanol content. It'll tell you a percentage of ethanol content on here. But the part of this that makes us be able to use this for flex fuel is not the actual sensor itself. The actual sensor just reads ethanol content. What this does is this converts the ethanol content into a 5-volt reference, and your yellow wire would be your 5-volt reference. So pretty simple setup. It's going to go in there, get wired in with the rest of the gauges, and we will wire this onto the car, plug this into the secondary O2 sensor, and be able to tune this car with flex fuel and have it actually truly be running on dual fuel maps, and having basically set up just to dump whatever you want in the tank and have the car calibrate for it. Alright, so the last thing we have to install is the ethanol content sensor. This is the return line coming off the fuel pressure regulator, and I'm going to go ahead and put the ethanol content sensor in place there. So here's the sensor. I opted to put some quick connect lines on here with the actual barbs instead of just trying to run the line on here and clamp it down. It's a little bit safer route. So we're going to go ahead and install one of these quick connectors on each end of this return line with some nice actual fuel clamps. And now that we have this ethanol content sensor plugged in, it's pretty much just going to hang out here. All right, everyone, thanks for watching today's video. And from this point forward, the next time you'll see this car is when we are getting ready to go take it up and drop it off at the dyno. You know, let our guys up there do their thing. The next video we will do a full kind of, you know, what's up with the car before we actually drop it off. I do have to do some other stuff to it, little stuff that's not really related to this video. So for now we are going to wrap it up. Obviously I haven't put the actual like intercooler piping back on and stuff, but as far as the install goes, this is what you guys wanted to see. So we have the install handled, everything is done. I just have to bolt the intercooler piping back on and just boost leak test it to make sure that it's going to be good. So thanks for watching the video, guys. A lot more content coming on this car. We actually have more parts that we might be buying very soon for this as well. So keep posted on everything here, and stick around for the next one because it will be soon and it's going to be rowdy. Thanks for watching, guys.